88 keys. This is the focus group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Focus Group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. We are the Focus Group. If you're joining us recently, how our show works is we do a little banter and catch-up in the beginning here every Wednesday. And then we'll do a sponsor segment, usually with our friends at Deep Discount and any other sponsors we have. And then we'll do Caught My Eye, which is two stories that John and I have found. Then we do our sponsor discount, take a quick break. We come back, and we are the only show in the universe that does business birthdays. And then we usually do a shop talk, or sometimes we have a guest. Since the event, it's been difficult to have guests, but John found this new technology along with our producer, Matt. And lo and behold, you heard us say 88 keys, or heard me say 88 keys. We have a guest joining us, Jeff Cabeta, who has started a company that does virtual piano lessons, which, sign me up, John. You know I've been wanting to learn piano for a long time, and we have a big baby grand sitting here that collects dust and holds a vase of flowers. So I would like to learn. So later in our show, stay tuned, and Jeff's going to join us and talk about virtual piano lessons, which is a thing now. So that's pretty cool. How are you?
Well, that's kind of why I wanted to have him on, was because you and Bob both have expressed strong desires to learn piano, and I've known Jeff for years. Our opening music and when we come back from break, the music that plays has been composed and produced by Jeff. So he's been kind of part of the show for a while. So when he said he was kicking off this virtual piano, I'm like, how do you teach like the whole teaching virtually thing? I did it with animation. It's one thing, but I think with an instrument, it's another thing. So I'm curious, and he claims that he has great results. And I think you watched one of his training videos, and the first thing you said was he's patient.
Yeah, that would be my difficulty, I think. Well, you would have a difficult time too. You're not very patient, John.
I've tried to be better, as you see. I've tried to be better. I've tried to be more patient.
Well, you just assume, particularly with tech, you assume everybody just knows.
Yeah,
that's why we talked about you maybe being if you were ever an Apple genius, that would have been a good job for you. Maybe if Apple was around with that sort of thing while you were in college, that would have been a good thing for you to head to downtown Binghamton and be the Apple genius. But
you don't think I could do Apple Genius Bar now?
No. Well,
you don't even think I could do it if we got me in there, and then I could report every week on some of the trials and tribulations and how my patient gets waned.
Well, Apple's really weird. You're not allowed to, at least I know at the headquarters, they don't allow their employees on social media.
Really?
Which I thought was weird. At least that's what I was told. We had a good friend that worked there, and she said she was never on Facebook or anything. They were. It was forbidden, verboten. So you'd have to go under assumed name, I guess. So So yeah, that's it. You keep him cool, or you keep him cool. You keep him warm. It's very cold.
Yes. Here's something about New York City apartments. We had the super turn. Well, they had to replace the valve. We have steam heat on our radiator, and he said if you want to turn it off, it's all the way off, or it's on all the way on. You can't do halfway with steam heat. So the bedroom, we turned the heat off. Haven't missed it at all. Have been sleeping way better because it gets a little more cool at night. But even with the heat off in the bedroom, the apartments, it's still warm. So there's only like 2 radiators now that are throwing heat out. I don't know. It's so
you can't regulate your heat.
No. Now up at the house, our house is all electrically heated, so we could turn rooms on and off as we please. And that works great. But of course, upstate is a little more realistic. I'm wearing like nice socks the whole bit. Here in the city, you can get away with winter wearing jeans and a t-shirt all winter long in your apartment.
I mean, put a tank top on.
Oh, Tim, it's funny you bring that up. I was looking at some old picture. My tank top days are over. I remember when I graduated to tank tops at the
Tank top
gym.
days are over.
I remember when I started wearing them at the gym, and my friend Tommy, who was a trainer, I was training with at the time, said, he goes, your shoulders have arrived, and so have your guns. You can now wear a tank top. There's a certain, anybody could wear a tank top. I always think that it has to drape a certain way and hang a certain way. So I'm out of that
Yeah.
category now.
Well, I had that conversation with somebody over the weekend, and they talked about how they had joined the gym, and he said, we all were very different, 20, 30 years ago. He said, the tits were in the right place and everything was, positioned properly. But now it's not about getting big. It's just trying to be lean or fit or just
Fit.
trying to be healthy. Yeah.
My criterias are fit and flexible, because you've heard stories of people bending down to pick up a pencil and their backs thrown out or something crazy. And for viewers, eagle-eyed viewers, I did manage to put Tim on the left and John on the right, and that was something that on our video stream, that was something that people caught very quickly. Like, oh, we like the new format, but Tim should be on the left.
How did you do it? Did you just flip it or something?
I just thought, I wonder if this can be done. I just dragged I rearranged our pictures manually, and it worked. And I was like, wow, it's nowhere in the instructions, but I thought, well, if it were me, I'd make it so you could move people around, and it
That's
did
funny.
work. So
I feel like I'm in a little dark room today. I guess maybe I should move this out. Next time I'll do once we get you're going to set up my new computer. Maybe I can move out to another room that's a little brighter. This is kind of man cave-ish, I think. A little dark in here. You've not seen the gray room.
Yeah, your new laptop is going to be it's got a way better camera built in, the whole bit. You're going to be really happy. So
All right. So without further ado, Mr. Nash, what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
All righty. What caught my eye is a very brief one, but it kind of tugged at me because it's just so unnecessary when people do certain things like this. So, the headline reads, let's go into that one here. Judge who humiliated 72-year-old cancer patient over unkept weeds finally says, I'm sorry. So here's the story. A Michigan judge berated in court a 72-year-old cancer patient for failing to tidy up the weeds in his yard, and she eventually apologized after more than 200,000 people signed a petition demanding her resignation. Burhan Chowdhury, 72, appeared in a Zoom hearing on January 10th, and this is in Michigan, after getting a ticket for overgrown grass outside his home in Hamtramck, Hamtramck, Hamtramck. Wheezing as he spoke, Chowdhury tried to explain to the judge, I am a cancer patient, very old, ma'am. I was then very weak. I cannot look after this thing. However, Judge Alexis Crote chose to humiliate the man, telling him, you should be ashamed of yourself. If I could give you jail time on this, I would. If you come back here, you're going to jail. After the clip went viral, Crote apologized, saying in a statement to the Detroit Free Press, I made a mistake. I acted intemperately. I'm very embarrassed that I did so. I apologize to the person who appeared before me and to our entire community for having failed to meet the high standards that we expect of our judicial officers and that I expect of myself. So if that's the case, why'd you say it at all?
Yeah, I wonder why was she so tuned up, I wonder. I wonder why the neighbors, if they knew he was not doing well, they didn't help out.
Dealing with cancer? Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But
Rather than complain.
This is the kind of thing I hear and I get kind of pissed off because it's like, if the guy says to you, oh, ma'am, I couldn't take care of it because I'm undergoing chemotherapy treatments right now. What the hell? Right?
Right. Well, it must have been somebody in the neighborhood complained. And rather than knowing that he was sick or something, I mean, I would think in most neighborhoods, who the elderly people are. You watch out for them or you look out for them, at least in most neighborhoods I always lived in. And then, you could say, you know what, we'll help you, get rid of the weeds or chop the weeds down or cut the grass or do whatever. It takes a village, people, right? I mean, why would she? Yeah, that's well, I wonder if she would have apologized she was forced to by the public, right?
After 200,000 people said, hey, ma'am, you might want to reconsider this tone of voice with this poor guy who, it's weeds.
Right.
This is one of those things that I just don't get. We're talking about weeds, right? Anyway.
Yeah. No, that's too bad. My caught your eye is or caught my eye is something we would have done and you're telling us maybe we can do it again. One of our
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Tim's lists. So this popped up on my feed from one of the aggregators that I get, and it was 10 of America's top selling cereals. So I thought, oh my God, this is made for me. I could have used this in a Tim's list, but I thought, well, let me just check anyway and see. So this little thing opens up initially with in 1863, a physician named James Jackson introduced a novel food to patients at his New York sanitarium after concocting a form of baked and crumbled graham flour cakes that he called granula. And the problem was the pieces were so hard they needed to be soaked in milk overnight. And so this is how they say ready-to-eat cereals kind of came into play. They said C.W. Post grape nuts appeared in 1897, Kellogg's Corn Flakes shortly afterwards, and of course now into the 21st century, breakfast is about an $8.6 billion business. And so they list the top 10 cereals by sales volume in the U.S. And I looked at the list, and I have to tell you, I was surprised. Do you have any guess what you think would be the most or the best-selling cereal in the United States?
I'm almost afraid to say it's like shredded wheats. I know you have a picture you gave me of Fruit Loops, but I think it's probably something dull like frosted mini wheats or something like that. Well, actually, the frosted is not so dull, come to think of it. But so shredded
So
wheat
the
would be mine.
shredded wheat. Let me look. So I used to love the frosted mini wheats. They came in at number 10. So it's a Kellogg Frosted Mini Wheats. They debuted in 1970, and they have annual sales of about 223 million. So that was number 9. And do you have one more guess? We won't go through. I'll tell you what they are quickly, but I just didn't know if you had
All right,
another
how about
guess.
Cheerios?
Okay, do you have a
Well,
particular?
Honey Nut
Just
Cheerios.
Cheerios.
Honey Nut or just
Oh,
plain.
John, you cheated. You're not going to get the socks. You'd have been in trouble. So both Cheerios and, in fact, Honey Nut Cheerios was the number one cereal in America in 2021. So I'll go down the list, 10 down. First is Special K, annual sales of about 193 million. It hit shelves in 1955. Number 9, Mini Wheats, we talked about. Number 8, Fruity Pebbles. I didn't know they still made that.
Fruity Pebbles, you serious?
Yeah. So they said that
Oof.
it
That's like
says one of the
Frankenberry.
first.
Remember Frankenberry, Captain Crunch Frankenberry?
Yeah, they said it was one of the first brands based on a cartoon character. So Fruity Pebbles do about 253 million a year and they debuted in 1971 from Post. Fruit Loops, number 7, 284 million. And they said, they go, spoiler alert, there isn't any real fruit in the Fruit Loops. Um, Can you imagine? Number 6, a cereal I never liked because I don't like things mixing sometimes. 298 million Lucky Charms.
I'm not surprised you are not a Lucky Charm fan. It's marshmallows and cereal. It's a lot of things going on, right?
Yeah, so it came from General Mills. Do you know how they came about? What they initially used for the Lucky Charms, for the charms for the marshmallowy part?
No, no.
They chopped up. This was 1964. The product was developed by a guy named John Holohan, and he had mixed Cheerios with Brock's circus peanuts. He chopped
Ew.
up those circus peanuts.
I know. Yeah, those are the orange ones.
Yeah, that's how they initially started, and then they developed this Lucky Charms. You imagine? Yuck.
Hmm.
Number 5, Honey Bunches of Oats. That's another Post cereal. Number there you have about 381 million, 385 million with Cheerios, debuted in 1941. Number 3, Frosted Flakes, 397 million, and that's a Kellogg cereal. Came out in 1952. And then number 2, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, 458 million, a General Mills cereal, and has a bunch of different names in other countries. And number 1 is Honey Nut Cheerios, 523 million. Cheerios were popular, they said, since the 40s, But if the plain version left little to be desired, the spin-off of the flavors, particularly Honey Nut's the most popular, was launched in 1979, and it was originally flavored with actual nuts until 2006. They began using peach and apricot pits to create the flavor. And people also love the mascot Buzz, which ended up disappearing in 2017, but it called attention to the declining bee
Oh,
population.
the little bee that flew around
Yeah,
was called Buzz, and he's now no
yeah.
longer there. Oh, okay. So
Well, they said he
Cheerios.
briefly disappeared, and now he's
Oh,
back,
now
I
he's
believe.
back.
But
Okay. So if you have any parents around you with kids, you know that kids love Cheerios, especially the plain ones. They push them around down their little tray tables and everything. But then as an adult, you fall in love with Honey Nut. It's just a sweet enough, it's just sweet enough.
yeah, I haven't. I don't think I've had it. I think my dad might. My dad might eat it. But so this came from a market research firm called IRI, and again, it was the top-selling cereals in 2021. So
Oh, there you
I was
go.
surprised by Honey Nut Cheerios, but I'm glad you guessed it. I think that's
I
pretty
did
good.
guess. I did not cheat. I did not cheat. I cannot, I'm not George Washington chopping down the cherry tree. I did not lie. I did not lie. But I
Well,
seemed to, something struck about Cheerios. All right, good caught our eyes. Hey, folks, we're going to take a really quick break. And when we return, we have a business birthday. And then we're going to be dropping in to visit Jeff Cabeta, who can teach you how to play piano on Zoom and FaceTime. And we have a client right here to my, screen right, your left, and that would be Tim. So stay with us. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now back to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Available pretty much everywhere.
hey, welcome back, everybody. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. We are the Focus Group here every Wednesday. You can find us on our YouTube stream. You can find us on iHeartRadio. You can find us on TuneIn and I don't know where. Spotify. Yabba dabba
Spotify.
do. Right. And our Facebook stream, which is focusgroupradio.com. I guess pretty much anywhere you want to look, you can find us, other than on Pride Radio. Yeah, do you know this Pride Radio thing? I saw it the other day. It popped up. There's a bunch of shows over there. I don't. Have you listened to it?
No, no. And where is it? Terrestrial? Is it internet based? What's the deal there?
I assume it's internets. Yeah, it's internet radio. But they play a lot of music. But
Oh,
it,
okay.
it kept
All
it kept popping up on my stream. But then there was also shows which I tried to listen to, but I was technically challenged and was unable to.
right. See, this is why if you came to me and I was an Apple genius, I would say, "Why are you technically challenged?" And then you start. I just remember, folks, we were doing a cross country trip once, and Tim had a problem with his iPad. It would not connect to the Verizon network, even though he was paying to have it connect. It was a cellular iPad. And every time he would call customer support at Verizon, I would listen carefully to the way the call went until finally we get to the Inn of the Turquoise Bear, recommended by many listeners.
Mm.
Yeah. Not necessarily our favorite spot, but Tim called. So now Tim's really he's going to call customer service. So he picks up the phone and I said, "Here's what you need to say. Say the following thing." He says it. Something happens. The guy goes, "We're all set." And it worked from then on. And Tim said, "If you knew that answer, why did
Why
you
didn't you
not?"
tell me when we were in the car?
And it turns out that he was asking for what he was asking for wasn't what the guy was hearing, because Tim wanted like a monthly recurring thing. And the guy kept thinking it was only a one-time charge. So I changed the language that he used and the problem got solved. But then I got yelled at for not coming up with the problem sooner or not saying something sooner. So anyway,
No, but you like to let things go sometimes. Everybody thinks you're the nice guy. Everyone's going to come meet the prince this weekend here and the following weekend in the Rehoboth Beach. I'll let them know how nice you are. I'm going to have you work with them all on their tech issues. Maybe I'll have you down here to do a bunch of computer setups, and let's see how patient you are. And lovely. John is so nice. Anyway.
With that,
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So, happy birthday, although she's not with us. Happy birthday to Bessie Coleman. She was born January 26th in 1892. She died tragically April 30th, 1926, at 34 years old in a plane crash. She is somebody we should know. And, when people talk about, I'll do a little sidebar thing here, but when people talk about appropriate statues to heroes or people in America that have done things to change society, and rather than having old Confederate soldiers, placed around town, Bessie Coleman deserves her own statue, and I'm sure there's one somewhere. But she was an early American civil aviator. She was the first African American woman and first Native American to hold a pilot's license. She earned her license from the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale in France, and at that time she was also the very first black person to earn an international pilot's license. She was born to a family of sharecroppers in Texas. She had worked in the cotton fields, and she was the 10th of 13 children of mixed African American and Cherokee grandparents. And she always had a fascination with flying, and she wanted to save up enough money to eventually learn how to fly. But of course, um, culture and society as it was did not allow or permit African Americans or Native Americans or women to have any sort of flight training opportunities. So she saved up all her money working as a manicurist in Chicago and found enough money and support to head over to France to go to flight school. And the French taught her how to fly. And she became popularly known as Queen Bee or Queen Bessie or Queen Bess or Brave Bessie. And when she got back to the States, she came back to much fanfare. And but she realized the only way she could really make some money is to be a stunt pilot. So she would do these air shows and across the country. And so after she wanted to decide to even learn more about stunt flying, nobody would teach her in the U.S. So once again, she went to Berlitz and Berlitz School to learn French and went back and got an international pilot's license to drive a biplane. And
you just answered a question I was going to ask you, which is, do you know the type of aircraft? I'm assuming it was a single engine, like a prop plane that she
yeah,
learned on, and then she would do her stunts on the biplane, right?
yeah, they said Coleman became the first black woman and first Native American to earn an aviation's pilot's license, also the first black person and first Native American to earn an international aviation license. And so she was determined to polish her skills. They said she was a media sensation when she came back. A quote from her says, "The air is the only place free from prejudices. I knew we had no aviators, neither men nor women, and I knew that race needed to be represented along this most important line. So I thought it was my duty to risk my life to learn aviation." And so she did all kinds of, as I said, stunts and work around the country. She went to the Netherlands, the aircraft manufacturer Fokker, Fokker, and they also taught her about different nuances with flight. She was a very popular draw. She was admired, they said, by both black and white Americans. And interestingly, she refused to do any air shows that did not allow African Americans to come in. So she really was stern, and she was criticized because people thought she was being too flamboyant or being too bossy, but she said, I will absolutely refuse to participate in any aviation events that prohibit attendance of all people, and of course African Americans. So she went on to Orlando, moved to Orlando, Florida. She opened up a manicure shop to also subsidize her money as well. And she was going to go do an exhibition out west, and as she was flying, her plane was about 3,000 feet off the ground, went into a tailspin and nosedive into the ground. She fell out of the plane. Can you imagine? She fell out at 2,000 feet and was in the air and killed instantly, of course, when she hit the ground, as was the co-pilot that was with her. He stayed in the plane and could not get control of it. They said that very little news about her death when she died. There was very little media attention around it, other than in some African American press. But over the years since, that was 1934, there's been many, many schools and airports and places in France and Germany and the Netherlands that have been named after her. So if you go to the O'Hare Airport, for instance,
Chicago's O'Hare?
Right, there's the Bessie Coleman roadway. Now, most people probably don't know why it's Bessie Coleman, right? Also, Oakland, California, Tampa, Florida, Frankfurt, Germany, airports all have a Bessie Coleman road. Number of plaques, and so she has been honored, although a lot of it's been in 2000, 2006. She's been placed in all kinds of honors for aviation. The U.S. Postal Service did a stamp about her, honoring her in 1995. And then there was an interesting, I thought this was interesting. There was the very first female African American women astronaut said, she had a quote that said, it's tempting to draw parallels between me and Miss Coleman, but I point to Bessie Coleman and say, here is a woman, a being who exemplifies and serves as a model for all humanity, the very definition of strength, dignity, courage, integrity, and beauty. And that was from Mae Jemison, who was the very first African American woman astronaut. But they said even African American aviators to this day will leave flowers at her house in Chicago at her marker, and all giving her credit for putting African Americans in the pilot seat. So good for her.
Brilliantly done, Tim. I love this birthday. I think she's beautiful. I love that photo that you sent that I use as the inset, where she's got that leather cap on. You know, the classic aviator's cap with the goggles. But what a tragedy at 34. I mean, I'm going to say something that sounds weird. She died doing what she loved, which was flying. But I don't think she probably ever predicted that a plane would hit a tailspin. She couldn't control it. And just the fact that she fell out of it and met her death that way is just, ugh.
Yeah, which was, I read into it, and I probably should do more research. But they found out later that somebody had actually jammed a wrench into the controls. And
now you said it as if it weren't an accident.
Well, that's how I read it. It doesn't say that in the bio. It just says later it was found that. So I guess it allows you to make your own conclusions. So, but she broke all kinds of stereotypes. And I mean, think about this in the 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
And she had to go to France to learn to fly. Right.
Yeah. A woman pilot, let alone, I mean, we were all used to Amelia Earhart, right?
Right.
So this is an amazing thing to have her, Bessie Coleman show up as someone who was a trailblazer doing this amazing stuff. And of course, the thing that I found fascinating in this, when you were going through her history, was the fact that she had to go to France to do this, right?
Yes. France and the Netherlands. Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I do, it's a political pitch. But when we hear about all these statues and things that are done and people complain, these are the sort of statues and people we don't know about. I'm sure African Americans certainly know about her more than maybe what we were taught in school. But, she's an American that broke a lot of ground. And whether you're a woman or Native American or whatever, you should be proud of it. So that's my pitch. I know, live with it. Hey, as John mentioned, we've got Jeff Cabeta joining us, and
Cabeta. Remember, we went through this whole thing.
Didn't I say Cabeta? Didn't I say it right?
It's perfect.
And Jeff, as John mentioned earlier, Jeff has done some of the score to our show, which thank you, Jeff, and also a listener of the show. And with John's new format we have here, we're allowed to have guests back again. So after 2 years, Jeff, you're our first guest.
I'm the first. Guest? Whoa.
I think so, right, John? It's been over 2 years.
Yeah. The only other folks we've been able to have on were Margulies for pottery,
right?
And Todd and Linda did the vibe spray. But basically, it was the old software was very hard to manipulate. But Jeff Cabeta, welcome to the show. You see, we have a little thing running across the bottom. If you're watching the video, there's a ticker that says "Learn piano over Zoom and FaceTime." Jeff Cabeta, pianoteaching.com. You'll hear a lot of that.
Thank you.
So I've known Jeff for many years. As Tim mentioned, he's done some of the scoring for our show. You hear it at the opening, and you've heard it at the rejoin every week for quite a while now. incredibly talented musician, composer, piano player, live performer. But a while ago, Jeff came to me and said, I'm going to start this business of teaching piano from home via Zoom and FaceTime with the event raging on. I guess so. Tim had a comment. First, he saw some of your videos on your website, which I think I will show now. So Jeff, you go to jeffcabetapianoteaching.com. Clean site, got a lot of stuff there. So Tim says to me, he goes, Jeff's very patient. So can anybody learn piano?
Yes, I believe so. It may require a different approach depending on the person. I'm teacher trained. My degree's in music education, so I've been trained that people certainly learn in different ways. So you try and accommodate for that, and when you're working with a student, you kind of assess, how is this going? Oh, maybe this particular approach isn't quite working the way I had wanted. So let's focus a little bit more on this or that, as opposed to this other facet of whatever you were doing. So yeah, I think it's mostly a matter of, being flexible and being able to change your approach if you need to, which kind of is the reason that I say, sure, I think anybody could learn piano.
Now, Jeff,
yeah.
Hold up your hands so we can see them. Now, do you have big hands? Because I always thought people said to be a piano player, you have to have long fingers like a Bill Clinton. Is that true? Because if you look at Elton John, he's got stubby. I'm amazed at Elton John. I think Elton John's got like doll hands, and how he plays the piano is beyond me. And I'm thinking, maybe do people need long fingers? I know it's a crazy question.
No, that's a great question. Actually, my teacher, my most recent teacher and my most prominent teacher was Dr. Judith Riddell at college, and she had small hands, and sometimes we would kind of compare our reach, and she would say, "Oh, I wish that I could reach that particular interval," and
right.
But of course, she was an incredible concert pianist, and the size of her hands did not at all take away from her playing at all.
The other thing, and I'll be kind of a yard sale with this. So you might have heard earlier, we've got where I live, we have a baby grand piano here that, I can't, I would love to be able to play something, and I've wanted to try to find lessons down here, which have been somewhat difficult. But what I'm always amazed about with piano players is you seem to have, different than other instruments, you seem to have two hands operate differently.
Yes.
And I think that is, to me, I want to see both. And so is that really the case?
Yeah. What was your question?
So you have to, when you're teaching piano, then
Yes.
So a lot of times people use one hand to kind of ding 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 ding, but
Mm-hmm.
to do the chords or whatever with your other hand, I'm just amazed that so many good piano players don't even look. It's almost like a great typist, right?
Oh,
They know right where everything is.
Yes. So what you're talking about is technically what we call independence of hands, and I certainly teach both hands from the beginning. And I will tell my students, if you need to look down to make sure that you're doing something correct, by all means look down. Then maybe try and do it a few times without looking down. Try to do it by feel, which is the term that we might use. But sure, I think I'm also someone I will encourage students to go ahead and practice things, a song that is for both hands. Take one hand out and just focus on the left, or take one hand out and focus on the right, then put them together. And for a while, I actually did not believe that for a long time, going many years back. But you know what kind of changed my mind was working with Broadway choreographers. Because when they would teach a combination to dancers, they'll say, hold up, let's just focus on the arms. and they'll just talk about whatever the arms are doing. Okay, now let's talk about what the legs are doing, and this walk and this cross and this, that, and then they'll put it together and it works. So
Right.
that was sort of my inspiration for that.
So Jeff, I'm listening and I'm very fascinated because you literally described what I was taught to do when I was taking animation. You break the problem down to its smallest solvable components, and in the case of piano or in choreography, it's isolating different parts of the body. Um, for when you're teaching someone remotely with Zoom or FaceTime, how are you actually setting yourself up for them to? Because part of the process is for them to observe you, right?
Yes. So that is part of the process. I don't make it a dominant part of the process. If there is something that I will need to demonstrate to them, I will literally just verbally walk them through it. And I'll just say, okay, your thumb is on middle C and this finger is on F. And I will sort of just explain that and have them actively do the thing that I want them to do. If there is some sort of coordination that I feel like they're going to want a visual model throughout the week while they're practicing, I will literally just produce a little YouTube video and I'll just mount it on YouTube just so they have that reference throughout the week of me demonstrating whatever it is that I want to demonstrate. But I try and keep things, whatever the word, enough for them to absorb without feeling overwhelmed by, a new maneuver, for lack of a
Well,
better.
it's like new muscle memory. It's a new lot of stuff. So when
For sure.
someone comes to you and they start inquiring about, and congratulations on the new website. By the way, I should let listeners know that Jeff was very painstaking in photography, language, launch. He's asked all the right questions. He came to me and asked some marketing questions. When someone approaches you, though, and they have a desire like Tim, like I would love to learn how to play something. Do you do a reality check and do you say you're going to learn, but it's going to be this amount of time?
Yes. I frequently, not frequently, with some frequency, I will have people who will say, can you teach me to play like Elton John? Or can you teach me to play like Ben Folds? And I will say, I can teach in a pop style. That is certainly something that I can do. Please understand that there is a process and there is a learning curve. And but you're leading me to something else that I love to talk about, is that I really try and incorporate pop songs and other sort of extracurricular songs into the normal lessons that are skill appropriate to the student. Because it makes it fun, of course, but also I think it makes it a little more relevant, rather than just playing the songs out of the lesson book.
What if
So
somebody came to you? I had a friend of mine that said he wanted to learn how to play, and of course I'm going to forget the song, but it
So,
was some
Tim, are you getting
famous
a one song person?
one
Someone wants to
song.
play?
Like,
Yeah.
he goes, I want to be able to play one song on the piano for my 50th birthday, the birthday party. And it was some like boogie woogie jazz thing that, and that all he wanted to do. He didn't want to learn how to read music. He just wanted somebody to teach him to play the one song. And so I guess it's a two-part question. Do you also teach people how to read music?
yes.
And is that almost as important as you also knowing where the keys and everything are, right? Or is it all a combination?
Well, it's a great question. And I think it really depends on what the student wants. I do think that there are certain students who may say, you know what, I really just want to learn how to play this particular song or this style of song. And I can certainly teach that by rote.
Right.
I would, which is, I'm happy to do that. That's not a problem. I would, because I'm sort of personally biased, I definitely would encourage the person to consider sort of taking the normal course of lessons, maybe in addition to what we're doing, or break up the lesson into sort of two parts. because for me, playing piano or playing any instrument is very, very similar to learning a language. It certainly would help to be able to read that language in addition to being able to speak it.
Right.
That's how I think about it.
So how long is the $1 million question we always ask is, so how long is the lesson? How
Mhm.
long do you think it would take somebody to see improvement if they practice as you ask them to? And then is there a fee structure on your website, which is Jeff Cabeta, pianoteaching.com?
There's not a fee structure on the website, but the standard for a beginner level is 30 minutes once a week. I can certainly do more. It really just depends on, how much of an appetite the student has for it. Although I will say you do sort of get a lot packed into 30 minutes. And that tends to be the sort of the baseline,
Right.
for beginner students. Once you get into maybe like an intermediate level of learning, you're maybe 2 years in, 3 years in, you may be looking at more like a 45-minute lesson. It really, again, it's a lot of things depend on the student. I have one particular student right now who started with me as an absolute beginner, but she's a very accomplished singer and a very accomplished actor, and she is flying. She is just
Wow.
every week she comes in, she has practiced, and we are moving through, we've already gone through 2 level books in less than a year. It really just, I think it depends on the person.
What's the
So,
cost?
and then Tim, your golden question, and this is when we were on
Yeah.
satellite radio, we would always ask this, and we get. So, what can someone expect in a range of rates for, like, beginner, intermediate? Like, is that how you break down some of the rates for how you teach?
Yes. Yes. So it's all based on my hourly rate. Which, do you want me to say it?
Well, you
Yes.
don't.
It's 120 per hour, which is also my rate for teaching voice, which I also do. So an hourly rate for 120 for 30 minutes, that would be 60.
Okay.
And, for an intermediate, that would be 90.
So, but you really are thinking from since you have been trained to teach, which I think is a really cool thing. You know instinctively that if I were approaching the piano learning experience, that I'm going to only be able to absorb 30 minutes of knowledge and then practice until you come back to make adjustments and take the lesson along further.
Yes. I was very lucky that I had a really good pedagogical education. I think that I have a pretty good spider sense about, gauging how's this going with the student. Does it feel like I'm not giving them enough in terms of assignments every week? Could we maybe add on a little bit? And I will just straight up ask the student, how's this feeling? Do you feel like you're getting enough every week? Are you feeling a little bored? Do you feel like it's too much? Do you feel like we need to slow down? And sometimes I'll show up for the lesson, and the student will be working our way down the list of what they had to practice for the week, and I'll say, "Oh, I gave you a lot of stuff this week," and they'll say, "Yeah, it was a little bit, it was a lot, but it was okay, it was okay." So, but yeah, I think I have a pretty good idea of, being able to gauge that, but also I'll just straight up ask, like, how's this feeling?
So if Tim
So
learned, is he
yeah.
going to have to do that thing where you put a $50 on his hand and he has to keep that $50 on his hand the whole, I don't even know if that's true or not. Is that some kind of urban legend?
That probably is something that some teacher did somewhere along the line. But no, he would not have to do that with me.
So Jeff, is this I guess you also do lessons in person, right? So this really came out of necessity of what was going on with the event, as we call it, so we don't get dinged in Mumbai. So but I think it's a brilliant thing. Are more your contemporaries or your colleagues that you know in the music business doing the similar thing with Zoom lessons now?
I think so, yes. I don't know of other piano teachers who are doing it personally, although I'm sure if you just named
Right.
a few of my associates, they probably are doing it. I just don't know. I
Right.
do know that several voice teacher colleagues are teaching voice virtually. I did not feel comfortable to teach voice virtually because to me the voice is just too it's too intimate, too delicate, too I really feel like I need to be in the room to
Right.
teach voice properly. But piano, absolutely, I could do it. In fact, it just kind of came to me by the idea of one of my students. She just kind of said, "Well, could we just continue virtually?" And I said, "Yeah, I think that's possible." And then all of a sudden, I was doing more and more, and discovering that I really enjoyed it.
Well, good for you. I'm glad you adapted because I think it's great. I think it's a great thing, and
Thank
I'm
you.
going to see. And do you teach over the weekends as well or evening if people for their schedules? So you all work out a schedule?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay. Great.
All right. Well, let's just
Oh,
reinforce Jeff's credentials here. So it's Jeff Cabeta, and the website is Jeff Cabeta, Cubeta, pianoteaching.com. It's been scrolling along here on the bottom of our magical ticker. That was for you today, Jeff. I made the
Thank you.
ticker for you. We're going to let you go, and we want to thank you for joining us. So again, everybody who's listening, it's Jeff Cabeta, Cubeta, Jeff Cabeta, pianoteaching.com gets you to this site. As I put up, there's a lot of information up there, and you could reach out to Jeff that way and begin your dream of being a virtuoso, Liberace, Elton John, whatever, right? Billy Joel, I suppose. Jeff, thank you so much for
Thank you, Jeff.
joining us today.
Thank you, Tim and John.
Thanks. Take care.
All righty. So there you go, folks. We're going to wrap it up there. And big thanks to Jeff for joining us today. And big thanks to Tim for a really great business birthday, by the way. I'm in love with that birthday, and I hope we have
Bessie
more
Coleman.
of them coming down. Bessie Coleman. So, folks, as we like to say, I'm going to move the deck along here to one of Tim's favorite things. And that is, don't text and drive, arrive alive. Everybody stay safe, be well, and we'll see you in the new week.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.